Here we go. It's time for what we've all been waiting for. It's time for Devil May Cry 5. But before we get into the game itself, I want to talk a little bit about the development of the game, at least what I know about it. Okay, well, probably not even that much, but there's a couple of points I do want to bring up. Firstly, I talked a lot during my Devil May Cry 4 review about how that game was rushed and made all the worse for it. While some people were able to look past it, the time I've spent with it really grinding on my gears the more I play the game. But why is this important to bring up? Well, Devil May Cry 5 took 6 years to make. Well, maybe not 6 years exactly. According to Wikipedia, Itsuno expressed interest in continuing the series in late 2013, the same year that the reboot, DMC Devil May Cry, was released. Regardless, this game took a long time to make, and that is an excellent sign. Having a game that had more than enough time to make directly after a game that was rushed to all hell, directly meaning 4, not the reboot. Despite general consensus, I don't think that game was really rushed at all. It felt pretty much complete to me. What was the other point that I wanted to bring up? Well, it's less about 4, but about the reboot. In an interview, Hideaki Itsuno had expressed interest in personally developing the sequel to the reboot. I would have been absolutely okay with this, seeing as I was one of the people that really liked it. But he finally decided to develop 5 instead. Which makes sense, seeing as the harsh backlash of the reboot makes a sequel to the mainline series a no-brainer. But, as is pretty obvious just from the trailers, Itsuno did take pretty heavy inspiration from the reboot when developing the game, with a more gritty and realistic atmosphere and art style. With, level shifting and changing around you. And even some smaller stylistic details like the momentary pause once combat is finished. We'll see how some of the reboot features carry over into this game, but if it works out well, I think I can sleep soundly. Having 5 being a bit of a sequel to both 4 and DMC is a nice way to bring both sets of fans together. I don't know, maybe I'm just reading too deeply into it, but my hopes for this game are really high. I suppose I can't put it off any longer. Let's get into it. My name is James, and this time on That Game Review Show, I'm going to be taking a look at the very long-awaited Devil May Cry 5.
There is no mountain too tall to overcome. We will be as one.
Before I begin, I want to put a huge spoiler warning right here. Seeing as this is the newest Devil May Cry game and has only been out for a few weeks at this point, I will be talking about basically everything. This goes for gameplay, story, even elements from the previous games. If, for whatever reason, you haven't played the prior games yet and want to go into the Devil May Cry 5 fresh, do not go on. This is a very special series for some people, and even some of the earlier spoilers have impacted me. Not to the extent that I am disappointed, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity to stop. Funny for how adamant I am how story should take a backseat to gameplay, I fucking love the story of the Devil May Cry games. Anyways, you have been warned. So, if I'm being honest, I have no idea how to actually start this review, so I suppose we'll start with the beginning. I mean, duh. The game begins with Nero and V inside this weird demon shit, and at this point Nero is already missing his Devilbringer. I was hoping that the very first mission with Nero would have you essentially playing Devil May Cry 4, that being Nero with the Bringer, but I suppose that's fine. He makes his way into the main room where we see Dante getting his ass handed to him. Lady and Trish are already out for the count. This is really the first time, except for 3, that we see Dante have difficulty with, well, anything really. He walks in, challenges this big baddie, and then gets his ass kicked. The demon is about to finish off Nero, but Dante comes in and saves him.
Round 2.
Activating his devil trigger, Dante does attack, but again the demon stops him. He yells at V, this mysterious man, to get Nero out, calling him dead weight in the process. Pulling Nero away, V explains to him that the demon is the demon king named Urizen, and that if Dante fails, Nero is their last hope. With a punch from Urizen, Dante is defeated, getting knocked out of Devil Trigger and his rebellion shattering into chunks of metal. V and Nero escape the demonic structure and meet up with Morrison, who is as shocked as I am about Dante losing. Well, I wasn't really shocked. I think it was shown in one of the trailers that he lost. Either that or one of the leaked cutscenes showed it. I was a bad boy and watched a lot of them. Roots from the demon tree rise out of the ground and begin to impale and drain everyone nearby. Frankly, if I was around when a giant demon tree rose up out of the ground, I would not be, for 1 second, sit around and stare at it like these idiots. A month later, Nero and his new companion Nico drive back to Redgrave City where the initial demonic invasion started, listening to news reports about the demons. Then, the best intro cutscene any game has ever had, ever. That's probably not true, but this is really damn good, and it hits me in a better spot than the somber intro of 4. It's more reminiscent of the pizza scene in the reboot, but still better and way more stylish than the pizza ever was, seeing as this is based exclusively on spectacle and the skill and style of Nero, whereas the reboot was pretty much just putting on pants. I've spent a while on this, haven't I? Well, this is a long intro and I wanted to justify putting at least most of it in here. The two ends, Nico and Nero. How stupid, why the fuck did I put that? Show up to their destination, the city limits of Redgrave City. We see a military effort trying to hold back the demons, and really failing miserably. The van drops from above an injured man, and he yells at Nero to try to keep him away from the demons.
You hear what I said, you dumb one-armed son of a bitch? You're gonna die!
Cheer up, crew cut. You taking notes? All right. Time to kick some ass.
Clearly, Nero didn't listen. This would be a really short game if he had. He shows off his brand new Devil Breaker, and then the game really starts. Nero destroys all the demons on the bridge and takes out Roots from the demon tree, which, the tagline for it says that it's the Clyphot. That's a hard name to say based on the spelling, but the actors just ignore the last H, so that makes things a lot easier. A flashback occurs. Nero and Nico are working on the Devil May Cry van when Kyrie, Nero's girlfriend, calls them that dinner is ready. Nero stays behind for a minute and a mysterious figure appears at the garage door. Nero, thinking nothing of it, tries to make small talk with the man, but once its Devilbringer starts to glow, he realizes something is up. Kyrie tries to check in on what's happening, but Nero tells her to stay inside, just as the man grabs the Devilbringer and throws Nero against the wall. In his hand is the Devilbringer, and it morphs it back into the Yamato. He didn't cut the bringer off, he swung Nero so hard that it came off. But it didn't completely destroy the wall or anything, so that was strange. Mission 2 is actually where the demo picks up. The van pulls up to some city streets, and Nico gives Nero a letter from Morrison, and after he reads it, Nero, gets to sell him some brand new Devil Breakers for him to use. The breakers are an awesome mechanic, but I'll go into them later. Just be patient. Nero works his way through the city streets, coming across some familiar looking demons in the process. God, I really miss the Hells from 3. They were really fucking good. A shame we didn't get all of them, but just having a couple were great. Nero takes down Goliath, but V shows up and deals the killing blow with his magical cane. Nero makes his way across buildings and up through sewers, up until he ends up in a library with an almost angelic looking demon waiting for him. And that demon's name is Artemis. This blew my mind seeing Artemis here. For those unfamiliar, especially since I don't think I mentioned anything about Artemis in my DMC3 review, but Artemis was the devil arm. specifically a gun, that you could get by getting all 3 stones from the trials fairly early on. Well, this is her, and by that I mean literally her. According to some of the unlockable materials that you can read in the library, it's the same devil arm combined with Clyphot roots. It makes sense it would be the same devil arm as well, since apparently Dante sells a lot of his devil arms after his missions for rent money. That's just unbelievably awesome and a perfect way to harken back to 3, especially since inside of Artemis is Lady the Devil Hunter trapped inside, and she's naked. This is a little uncomfortable, but thankfully my mom doesn't walk in on me playing video games anymore. Getting the video age restricted on YouTube though.
What?
Can't believe you do this to Kyrie. I'm gonna have to tell her, man. I'm joking. Hey, loosen up your jockstrap.
Haha.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Chicka bow wow, chicka bow wow.
Kyrie would kill me right now.
And now we get to play as V. As I said with Nero, gameplay will wait. Just know that V controls some demons and doesn't fight himself. Got that? Cool. V works his way through the city and comes across the Clyphot parasite, Nidhogg. This is interesting for me personally, seeing as Nidhogger, or just Nidhogg, is a lizard that lives on the bottom of the Yggdrasil in Norse mythology, gnawing on the roots. And Nidhogg here is the daddy of the keys you find in the game that chew their way through some of the tough roots. Also, a lot of material says Needhogg. I don't like that. I prefer Nidhogg. I don't know, maybe it's just anglicized too much for me. But yeah, I like Needhogg more, so, or Nidhogg. Damn it, they're doing it to me. I'm gonna say Nidhogg, so if that upsets people, fuck yourself. After Nidhogg disappears, a giant demon in the background attacks V and he falls into the sewers beneath the city. And this is how you know V isn't a descendant of Sparta. He runs from a fight like a bitch. At the end of the mission, V comes across the Elder Garian Knight, and this horse may look familiar. As Griffin says during the fight, V fought a Garian horse in 3.
Power to control time. That's quite a horse.
But that would mean it's scary.
It's a rare species, but apparently not quite extinct. Until today, that is.
The amount of callbacks and references in this game is incredible. The fight is cool. The boss shoots out some time-slowing energy and you have to avoid it as the cripple. So if you haven't noticed, the story in this game is a bit like a Quentin Tarantino movie. It jumps around a bit from plot point to plot point. The next mission takes place a few minutes beforehand, with Nero taking down the giant monster that had attacked V. Hold on a minute, it's called Gilgamesh? Well, Gilgamesh was a devil arm in 4, that being the hand-to-hand weapon. But apparently Gilgamesh is a metal found in the underworld, not a specific demon. So it could very well be that the devil arm from 4 was based on the demon, but this demon here is just a monster made from the Clyphot roots. I spent a lot of time reading the documents this game has, okay? Nero and V fight their way through a subway station. Then V gets really eerie about the town having been attacked beforehand, and him being there. And this is when he decides that he is going to go after the Devil Sword Sparta.
I was playing right here. That was the house. This is where we part ways. You go ahead.
You're gonna miss all the fun.
No. I must seek out the Devil's Sword Sparta.
What? Yeah, I don't think that's such a good idea. Trust me.
You're not the only one who thinks so. But to win this fight, we're going to need all the help we can get.
Not the only one. What the hell aren't you telling me?
Nero fights his way back up the Clyphot and back to Urizen's throne room. He takes on the Demon King and manages to cut his hand despite all the effort against him.
It's about time I landed something.
Weak mortal.
All that for a drop of blood.
Urizen is about to put down Nero, but a mysterious red demon swoops in to save the day. Time jump! A little bit before the invasion on Redgrave, Morrison meets Dante in a dark and rundown Devil May Cry with a job offer. Dante is excited due to the cash being up front, and he accepts. The phone starts to ring and he picks it up, only to have a girl's voice yell at him about not answering.
Devil May Cry.
Dante, do you have any idea how many times I've tried to call? Like a zillion. Oh my god, tonight's my birthday party. Yeah, I'm turning 18. Not a little kid.
Okay, Morrison, I'll take you up on that gig, but only if you can get me out of that hellish birthday party.
Consider your RSVP declined.
I didn't watch the anime much, but this girl is Patty, the girl that Dante helped during the course of the show. The fact that they tied it in is honestly just great. Anyways, the client that Morrison got the job from is the mysterious V, and this is when he and V meet, and of course V is all weird about this shit.
I have no name. I am but 2 days old. Just kidding. You can call me V.
Back in the present, V is on his mission to recover the Sparta, and at the end of the mission he does, retrieving it from a bunch of nobodies from DMC-1. He's too weak to actually use the Sparta, but Shadow notices Dante down off of a cliff. V takes the sword over to him, somehow, and while talking about how he hates Dante, he plunges the point of the blade down, right when Dante's eyes open.
Don't do it, V. No!
Then another time jump. This first one is many years in the past. It's of a woman and her son, Dante, as she tries to hide Dante away. She tells him to run and hide, and be brave while she goes to find Virgil.
I need to find Virgil. I promise I'll be back. I know this is hard. You must listen to me. Be a big boy. A man, huh? If I don't return, you must run. By yourself, alone. You must change your name. Forget your past and start a new life. As someone else. A new beginning. Virgil! Where are you, Virgil?
This is Eva, their mom, and this scene is really fucking weird, as we've heard about the demons having killed their mother for years since the very first game. Then, back in the present, V explains to Dante that he had to use Nero to try to defeat Urizen, in case Dante was defeated. And of course he was. V notes that Urizen is stronger than anyone could have imagined, and he takes his leave. And another time jump. Dante, accompanied by Lady, Trish, and V, go inside of the Clyphot. And once V turns tail and runs, Dante and the girls make their way up to Urizen's throne room. Dante arrives after Lady and Trish, just in time to see them get thrown away like nothing. Dante remarks that they're the toughest ladies in the world, and only one person could ever defeat them.
Jackpot.
Dante attacks, but as we saw at the beginning of the game, he gets beaten, even with his double trigger. Nero is pushed back, and Dante tries again, this time using the Devil Sword Sparta that Trish throws to him. But Urizen knocks Dante aside, claiming that the Sparta no longer serves a purpose, and that brings us back to the present. Dante starts to head out when V tries to get him to stop and he falls down. Dante, shrugging it off, tells V to get some rest. But as we, the player, can see, V's skin is kind of turning to dust a little bit. The city ruins stand no threat to Dante, and he runs up against a lightning demon, the same one that was riding the Garian horse earlier, named Cavalier Angelo. Dante swiftly defeats it and frees Trish from the inside, same as Nero did for Lady. V arrives and Dante tells him to take care of Trish, while he gets onto the bike that formed from the pieces of Cavalier Angelo and drives away. Trish wakes up from the attack and she questions V on what Urizen is, since she knows that he is not really a demon. V explains to her how he was born, and by extension, Urizen. A man, who is clearly Virgil, makes his way back to their old home and uses Yamato to separate his two halves. His human half and his demon half. His human half took the form of V, and the demon half took the form of Urizen.
To defeat his twin brother.
Dante.
Heavy chain that does freeze my...
In order to defeat his younger brother, he could only do one thing with the crumbling flesh and feelings. He needed to separate man from devil with the strength of the Yamato. And eventually, the man became a true devil.
He asks Trish if he made a mistake trying to get Dante to help, and she tells him that she is not his mom, despite being based off of her, and that he should do what he can to help. So that was the big twist, that V and Urizen are parts of Virgil. I remember seeing a lot of theories about this, at least that V and Urizen are Virgil, not really saying that they are both him. I'm sure if I had more time between starting the game and reaching this point, I could have gone to the same conclusion, but really I powered my way through this game, and I was fairly surprised. Also, this scene is really fucking brutal. Actually, not really, in retrospect, but it is kind of fucked. Dante works his way to its childhood house as well, and becomes lost in thought about how his demonic power was awakened by Virgil stabbing him in the chest with rebellion. You know, I won't explain more, I'll just let you watch.
Me once, when Virgil lovingly jammed this through my chest. I always wondered, why did my father give me the rebellion?
Okay, what are you muttering?
Over the years, I've been stabbed and jabbed by a number of things. But who would have ever guessed?
Have you lost your mind? There's a demon to destroy! Kill yourself later! I'll help!
If the Yamato can separate man from devil, then what about the rebellion?
Wow. You are absorbing the Sparta!
This awakens Dante's Sin Devil Trigger, which is his ultimate form, and holy fucking shit, this looks awesome. So, sidebar. Yamato's power to separate man from demon is pretty apparent, but I didn't quite understand what Rebellion was doing at first. Instead of separating the power, it actually unifies it. That's why it absorbs into Dante along with the Sparta. That's combining all three sources of power into one, allowing Dante to become even more powerful. What I wonder, and this is entirely hypothetical, is if he had access to multiple devil arms in this scene, would they have also been absorbed? Of course, that wouldn't work as well for the story, but I'm just curious. Like, what if Dante had the Yamato as well? Who knows, just some food for thought. Also, something I didn't put in the script. Apparently there is a scene in the anime where he uses rebellion to separate a demon from a human. Maybe it's different because the human wasn't born half demon, I don't know, I don't remember seeing that episode. So, is that just an anime thing? Or is that just an innate power the rebellion has? Or is that part of Dante's influence over the rebellion? I don't know. I'm really thinking too much into this, you know, made up fucking bullshit. Dante flies away and arrives back at Urizen's chamber, where he unleashes his new sword, the Devil Sword Dante. He takes on Urizen, and during the fight, the rest of the Qliphoth is revealed, and Urizen vanishes to the top of the tree. Or at the bottom, I guess, since it's demonic. The entire group meets up and Trish explains to them that the human blood is a source of power for demons, and when condensed, the fruit it forms is even more powerful. And was actually how a former demon king, Mundus, used the fruit for more strength. So this scene here is really great. It's Nico introducing herself to Dante, explaining that she is the granddaughter of Nell Goldstein, the woman who made Dante's pistols, Ebony and Ivory. What's cool is that the guns have said this since the very first game. Buy 45 artworks for Tony Redgrave. Redgrave being an alias Dante used shortly after the demon attack on his family. Apparently, Nell died as she gave Dante the pistols, them being her final works. This was all shown in a manga taking place quite a few years before the events of 3. I haven't read it myself, but this is a really fucking cool story. Is it clear so far that I like this game? Yeah, I like it. At least a little bit. She gives Dante a hat called Dr. Faust, and Dante turns into Michael Jackson for a short while.
I'll take that.
I have to admit, while I enjoyed this scene, I really am not a fan of Michael Jackson. I just don't think his music is all that great. I'm sorry. Dante heads out and tries to get Nero to stay put, but V gets in the way and convinces Dante to let him go too. The three take their own paths down the Clyphot, only to all end up in the same place anyway. This is clearly because the mission can be played with any of the three characters, which is kinda cool. Later, V finds himself nearly dead, trying to make his way through the Clyphot, where he is sent into a weird realm that strips him of all of his demons. V fights against 3 old bosses, unlocking a demon with each one, and the realm heals him just enough to get him to where he needs to go, the heart of the Clyphot. Nero goes along his path and ends up with V, who is hiding from a giant demon named Malphus. Nero, being related to Sparta, just fights the demon anyways, because why not? He kills Malphus and V is in serious trouble, his body falling apart. Nero tries to get him to turn back, but V insists on going to Urizen, calling it his last request, with Nero begrudgingly agreeing. Dante's path is much further down the Clyphot, and at the end he comes across King Cerberus, a clear and blatant homage to the first real boss of Devil May Cry 3. Dante even references this in the pre-fight cutscene.
Oh, easy there, fella. Hey, I remember a stinky little pooch just like you.
With King Cerberus defeated, Dante drops down to the heart of the Clyphot. Dante confronts Urizen, or more so Virgil, talking about how his quest for power is pointless because of how much he's given up in his quest. He even tries to appeal to Virgil, saying that Eva, their mother, tried to save Virgil too.
Hey, is that the damn fruit you've been jabbering about? Doesn't look so special to me. Yep. This is where it all started. That day Mother saved me and left you behind. The thing you don't know is, she tried to save you too. She kept searching and searching. Until I killed her.
I have no recollection of this tale. Or this place. It's all an illusion, created by this extraordinary fruit. Its power, you see, is all I ever wanted. And with this,
No.
I will have everything!
No, brother. You don't have everything. That last shred of humanity that you still had, you just lost it.
Urizen claims to not know about it, and I kinda believe him, seeing as this story would have appealed to his humanity, which was split off and left with V. So Urizen only knows about power and revenge, whereas V knows all about Virgil's spurned humanity. That's how I look at it. And with a bite, Urizen consumes the apple, a clear parallel to the Apple of Eden, and sheds his armor, no longer needing it. Dante takes on Urizen, and with the help of his Sin Devil trigger, he takes down Urizen. With a little bit of help since he killed me, but Dante still won. V explains to Nero that Dante has an older brother named Virgil, and that, they constantly fight. I'll just let you watch this.
Who stands before him is his kin.
That's ridiculous.
The brothers of blood disagree on the very reason of their existence. They must fight.
V, wanting to deal the final blow to Urizen, steps on top of the Demon King. That's right, with the power of the Qliphoth reunited with his human soul, Virgil is back, and badder than ever. God, this is awesome. I can't explain how cool this is, so just watch.
You got some pretty big cojones for coming back. Just don't know when to give up! Get out of my way, Nero!
Defeating you like this has no meaning.
Come on, Virgil. Let's do this.
Heal your wounds, Dante. Get strong. After that, we'll settle the matter. Thank you, Nero.
Damn it. If that's your brother, what happened to V? He returned to himself. Go home, Nero. This doesn't concern you.
Like hell. I lost my right arm because of him!
This is not your fight. I need to stop him, and that's all that matters.
I'm not gonna let you have all the fun, Dante!
You don't get it.
Let me guess. I'm dead weight? Well, you can
That's
shove
not
it
it,
up.
Nero.
What is it then?
He's your father!
What?
I had the feeling the first time I saw you, but I just wasn't sure. And then I saw how the Yamato reacted. And I was certain. He's your father. Now he needs an ass kicking. But I can't have you go kill your old man.
My father.
That's right, it's now confirmed in-game, Virgil is Nero's father. Nero, understandably so, is a little upset by this revelation. Virgil, at the very top of the Qliphoth, considers if he and Dante had been in different positions, would their lives have been different as well? I don't really think so. I think Virgil's lust for power is ingrained into who he is, but that's just me. The girls escape in the van, and Dante heads up to go fight Virgil. Along his way, he comes across Griffin and Shadow, fighting them on his way up the tree. This is great, seeing as Griffin and Shadow are both enemies from the first game. They even attack in similar ways. And of course the soundtrack changes to fit them as well, with Shadow specifically playing a remix of Lock and Load from the first game. What I liked is that Griffin explains to Dante that they are embodiments of Virgil's thoughts from when he was still Nello Angelo, which is cool, and it makes a lot of sense thematically. Also, I want to point out that the name Nello Angelo is now officially canon in my opinion, seeing as it originally started off as a translation error, and hasn't been spoken in games since, well, never now that I think about it, only in text. But here we get the name said, and now I don't feel as weird calling him Nello Angelo. Dante takes on all three of them, now joined by the Nightmare. With them defeated, Griffin warns Dante that if he had any difficulty fighting them, Virgil will be worse. It seems like the demons like Dante at least a little bit. At least that's how it comes to me. Also, this isn't the gut punch moment I think they were going for. While I really liked Griffin and his personality, we didn't really get enough screen time with him. I'll talk more about that later. With their deaths, so too do Virgil's nightmares, and the path to Virgil is open. Nero, while trying to escape the Qliphoth breaking away, is rescued by the ladies, and begins to ask Trish about Virgil. Trish agrees with Dante about Nero not killing his father, and Lady admits that he will never really be able to move past it.
Dante!
He's got this! We gotta go now!
So this guy Virgil, know him?
Vaguely, yes.
Dante said that guy's my father. What the hell's going on, Trish?
His logic is sound. I had a hunch myself.
This doesn't make any sense!
I know you hate Virgil, but you can't kill your own father!
It's true. You'd never recover from that. You saved us. You should be proud. Now you can put all this behind you.
Nico, stop the car!
No chance! After all this, are you insane?
Fine. I'll go by myself.
This is a bit of a gut punch, seeing as at the end of 3 she did kill her father, Arkham, and was very clearly torn up about it. At the top of the Qliphoth, Dante confronts Virgil. This fight is really good. I wouldn't say better than the fight at the end of 3, but still really damn good. The two reach a stalemate. Dante, during the fight, questioned Virgil on his taking of Nero's arm, and he says that Nero means nothing to him. Once the fight is over, Virgil questions Dante about it. Then comes the realization himself. The two are ready to end the fight, and as they charge up their Sin Devil triggers and dash toward each other, they're stopped by a mysterious demon. The screen fades to black, and we find Nero after having left the van, approaching a payphone where he calls Kyrie.
Nero? Is that you, Nero? Did something happen?
Kyrie. When I was a kid, I was alone. You and Kratos were all I knew. And now all of a sudden I find out I have a family. What am I supposed to do with that?
You always know which path is right and which is wrong. There's no need to doubt yourself.
Thanks. I guess that's all I needed to hear. I have one last thing to take care of. Then I'm coming home. I couldn't protect Kratos. To this day, I hate myself for not having enough strength. But this time is different. I swear! I'm not letting you die!
This is curious.
Nero.
They're a little heavy-handed with Nero in that scene, but you can't deny that it is kinda awesome. He gets in the way of both Dante and Virgil and stops them in their tracks. Nero tells them that their rivalry should be over, that neither of them will die today.
Do you have a problem with that?
Not gonna die my ass. Oh, that bitch slap nearly killed me.
Virgil decided to take this as a challenge and fights Nero. This fight is really good as well, similar to the first, but also way harder. And the music in the background, just watch this.
This has nothing to do with you. Stand down. Nothing to do with me, though. It has everything to do with me! Fuck you! You take me seriously now?
Silver Bullet was a perfect way to accentuate the fight. Nero then defeats Virgil. Having been humbled, Dante and Virgil team up to go to the underworld to kill off the Qliphoth from its roots. Nero tries to stop them, but Dante hands Nero the torch of saving the world.
You can't just expect me to stay here while you both go in! It's because you're here we can go. We're trusting you with things on this side. Capiche?
Make haste, Dante.
Yeah, I know. Hey, wait! Take care, Nero. Adios.
I don't really mean to show the cutscenes so much, but they can portray the story way better than I ever could. In the underworld, Dante and Virgil cut off the roots and seem to have gotten over some of their differences. Back on the surface, Nico and Nero drive back to Fortuna, where she is grossed out about his human arm having grown back. I mean, it is kinda gross when you think about it, but while on the phone with Kyrie, they come across some demons, and being the new main devil hunter, he has an obligation to kill them. Despite having a brand new arm, Nico makes him a new style of Devil Breaker that'll work with the whole arm growing back thing, which is great for gameplay. And in a really weird twist, they go into the mechanics of the true Devil Bringer implemented into the Breaker system. Nero's control scheme just gets insane at this point. After the credits, Lady and Trish are sitting in Devil May Cry, trying to decide who will get ownership over the establishment. That is until Morrison comes in and ruins their fun. Dante and Virgil are fighting each other, keeping track of who is beating who in an attempt to see who is better, but it appears that they are at a stalemate.
Score for Dante. I'm up one.
When did you learn to count? We're even.
You know, I'm starting to think this is never gonna end.
Maybe. We got plenty of time.
A bunch of demons show up during their fight, and as they proceed to kill the monsters, we get the iconic
"Don't you dare say it, jackpot!"
and the game ends. It's kinda cool to see them fighting like this. It's a nice parallel to 3 where they were fighting for blood, whereas here they're kind of just fighting for the fun of it. So as far as the story goes, overall I quite liked it, but there were some things I had issues with. Actually, only one thing really. And that's Nero being strong enough to stop both Virgil and Dante in their Sin Devil Trigger forms. Nero, being the son of Virgil, who is half a demon, and a presumably human mother is 1/4 demon, right? Makes sense to me. So why is it that despite not being supercharged to any extent, is he able to surpass his father and uncle? I understand Dante passing the torch to Nero, but this doesn't make sense to me. You can have Nero be really strong without forcing it, and that's what it felt like. Maybe DMC6 should be Nero's quest for more power to get him to that point, but just doing it at the get-go is really strange to me. And this is off script. One of the weird parts about it is the fact, like I said, Nero is not supercharged. Dante has the combined power of himself, Rebellion, and Sparta all together in his Sin Devil Trigger. And Virgil has the whatever power he had from V, and all of the power that Urizen had, even after consuming that apple. So that's just ultimate power. It's over 9,000 power combined into these two beings. And Nero is just like, nah bro, it's cool. I don't get it. Like, that kind of defeats the point of both Dante and Virgil amassing that amount of power. Sorry, I'll go back to the script. I just really had to bring that up because while I was reading that, I thought of it. You know, there is a second route for the story to go. Nero, being the badass he is, defeats Urizen at the very beginning of the game, and they all live happily ever after. I shit you not, this is an unlockable scene where Nero kills Urizen. The credits play super fast and everything because it is just a secret. So I guess 10 pages into the script, I might as well start talking about the gameplay. Where to start? Where to start? I guess we'll start with Nero, seeing as he is center stage and does start off the game. Nero is vastly upgraded from his gameplay in 4. We keep some mechanics like the Exceed system which supercharges his attacks, but others are done a little differently. Color Up is a new mechanic, where Nero puts special bullets into his blue rose, which will explode rapidly on contact. Nero only gets 3 shots per charge, so you will have to use them wisely. Overall, his attacks with the Red Queen are mostly the same, he just gets a few new moves. I am really bad about diversifying my moves with Nero, so I didn't use the new ones that much. But one is just like Killer B where he shoots into the ground, and it's super useful. Of course, I didn't end up using it much until afterwards. His Devil Breakers are the biggest gameplay change. Since Daddy Virgil ripped off his arm, Nico developed a prosthetic for Nero to use, which is usually just a metal stump on his arm, which he can equip breakers onto. I won't go into every breaker, seeing as there is a lot of them, but I didn't really like some of them, like the deluxe edition exclusive Mega Buster, so take this with a grain of salt. The very first breaker you get is Overture, which creates a giant electric fist to blow enemies away. The second is Gerbera, which creates a shockwave that will either blow enemies away or blast Nero to a different direction. I didn't elaborate on this much. This one is really fun because it essentially acts as a better dodge button for Nero if you time it right, and it can actually deflect blasts. I don't have any footage of this, but Goliath, the first real boss, I guess second, whatever, it will actually knock his attacks back, and that's really cool. Another great one is the Tomboy, which supercharges the Red Queen and the Blue Rose. It's nearly impossible to control, but once you get the hang of it, it's not so bad. Punchline is also great, throwing out a rocket fist to attack enemies on its own, or you can ride the fist like a fucking baller. I'd say my last favorite one is the Buster Arm, which basically turns it into Devil May Cry 4, where Nero grabs enemies and throws them around, but unfortunately, that arm becomes irrelevant. Each breaker has a special break age move, where Nero does a super special attack, but in the process, he loses the breaker. But goddamn are they worth it. My favorite being the Punchline, which is just a super powerful uppercut. Biggest downside of the breakers though, is that they're super fragile, so if you get hit at any point while a breaker is active, it will break, and this counts for the charge attacks as well. Even ones that don't make sense, like getting hit when Punchline is active, even though Punchline isn't attached to you. I don't know, whatever, it's a gameplay thing, and it's funny that you can tell the clear delineation from when I'm scripted and when I'm not scripted. The breakers were a great addition, as it adds a lot of good variety into Nero's gameplay. A big problem in 4 was it felt like I was just going through the motions, doing the same attacks over and over, but with the breakers it makes one button do so many different things. At the end of the game, Nero unlocks his Devil Trigger, which behaves very similar to how it did in 4. with spectral arms attacking alongside Nero himself. But the biggest difference is that it is no longer a magic stand behind Nero. The arms take the form of wings on his shoulders in his changed form. His attacks become stronger, and if you have a breaker equipped, you retain full use of it. This is why I said the Buster arm becomes irrelevant. Once you gain Nero's Devil Trigger, he natively gets the ability to buster enemies, which will be powered up in Devil Trigger obviously. It also adds the ability to snatch with the Spectral Arm, which is irrelevant since Nero's Breaker can use the Wire Snatch to grab enemies, so I don't see the reasoning behind adding both. So I do want to say, this is unscripted. R1, Aim. R2, Buster and Snatch. L1, Devil Trigger. Well, actually L1 is Breakaway, but I moved Breakaway to the D-pad. L1, Devil Trigger. L2, Exceed. D-pad, Breakaway. It's like, the fact that they have used basically every button on the controller is obscene, and it's kind of awesome. The timings for Nero's attacks seem to have been affected. It's not a huge difference, but it did mess up my groove a little bit. The delay to do Nero's various combos seems to have been extended, making me miss the input for them, so instead I end up doing the basic combo anyways. Same goes for something like Roulette, where you can delay the button to shoot further into the air, but the window has been moved. Other timings, like hitting left trigger to activate the Exceed system, seems to have been made more forgiving, and this I did actually use the entire time throughout the game. Also, as a side note for Nero's gameplay, switch Breakaway, the move that consumes one Devil Breaker for a quick escape, to the D-pad. Having it on left bumper, especially after playing as V and Dante so much, led me to wasting a lot of breakers I had at my disposal while trying to use Devil Trigger. This only turned into a real issue once I got Nero's Devil Trigger, since the default is to just use the D-pad to activate it. It just makes way more sense to change them around, so go ahead and do it. V is our next character, and he plays differently. V himself doesn't attack enemies. The best way to describe it is that he is a hitbox, and the demons he controls, Shadow, Griffin, and Nightmare, are his weapons. Shadow handles the melee attacks, Griffin is the range attacks, and Nightmare is his Devil Trigger. Similar fare to Nero and Dante, there are delay and directional attacks for the two, but seeing as you don't control them directly, it does get a little confusing on how to do the different attacks. Shadow, being basically an enemy from the first game, uses a lot of the same moves, like the tail swipes and piercing enemies in the air. Griffin as well gets a lot of similar moves to what he had in the first game, just on a vastly smaller scale seeing as he's no longer a boss-sized bird. The strangest one is Nightmare. Nightmare in Devil May Cry 1 was a blob of demonic goo, but here it's more of a humanoid mass with a laser beam. Nightmare, unlike Shadow and Griffin, attacks mostly on its own, and seeing as it acts as V's Devil Trigger, uses up the gauge. V does have the ability to ride on top of Nightmare, but I never really liked doing that, so I didn't get the hang of it much. V's demons can't actually kill enemies, which is a little strange, so V is required to jump into the battle to deliver the killing blow. Thankfully he can teleport with his cane to get him in fast, but to get out just as fast, you'll have to dodge. Dodging with V is different, seeing as he's a cripple. V requires use of his two main demons to dodge, which does take them out of the fight momentarily. If your demons take too much damage, they will be put into a stalemate, which means they're temporarily disabled during combat. They'll come back on their own within a minute or so, but the closer V is, the faster they will return. V, since he's not doing much, has the ability to read his book, which will slowly fill up your Devil Trigger gauge when in combat. With his Devil Trigger gauge, he can actually power up Shadow and Griffin, or summon Nightmare. V is entirely based on building Devil Trigger, staying away, and summoning Nightmare. He is 100% a strange style to play, but I really did come to enjoy it. Dante is our final character to play as. Just like in 4, he has the most diverse moveset due to how many devil arms there are in this game. In this game, he gets a whopping, hold on, let me look here. Let's see, yeah. He has 7 different devil arms, 6 if you don't count Cavalier R, which I really don't, seeing as it behaves exactly like the original, it's just red. You can also discount the main swords, Rebellion, Spartan, and Dante, as they are all very similar. Dante gets 6 guns as well, so I'm not going to go in depth with all the weapons. Same with the Devil Breakers, I want to talk about my favorites. Of course, the swords are great, and they have to be considering they don't let you unequip them. Rebellion and Sparta share a moveset, the only difference being that Sparta's form will shift and change depending on what you're doing. Double Sword Dante, on the other hand, behaves a bit differently. If you hold the attack button, the weapon will charge, but instead of doing a powerful attack, 4 copies of the blade will be made at the cost of Devil Trigger. They will attack alongside Dante and Swordmaster style, and they'll do other things in the other styles. I never experimented with the other styles except using Trickster to sometimes dash towards enemies. I should diversify a little bit. Anyways, the Spectral Swords will attack alongside Dante, and if you press circle, the blades will attack more independently, doing various attacks more so than copying Dante. If you summon the swords and equip different devil arms, the blades will mimic the other weapons as good as they can, and that's a really nice detail that they just don't go to waste. Dante's moveset is also condensed to be mostly used with just the attack button, and for the most part it works. Some of my favorite moves, like Prop and Shredder, are implemented into delay attacks, and others like Drive have a very simple way of activating them, that being back to forward and attack while targeting. Next, unsurprisingly, is Cavalier, being the first real weapon they showed for Dante. It's 2 halves of a demonic motorcycle, whose wheels turn into basically chainsaws. The attacks are swung super slow, but when they connect to the enemies, they are stun locked and just keep taking damage. I really did like the Cavalier, but it just felt way too slow in my opinion and didn't have much combo potential. I'm sure as soon as I say that, I'll find an insane combo video for it. And my last favorite, mostly due to how much I loved it in 3, is the Cerberus. The 3-section nunchucks are back, this time with a twist. Instead of just using ice, some moves also use lightning and fire for their attacks. While I figured this would have been a toggle, like the punches and kicks with the also great Balrog were, having the powers activate for certain moves is kinda nice. Most of the moves it gets are ripped straight from 3, and my favorite move, Revolver, is back and feels oh so good to use. So I glanced over Balrog there for a sec, and I do really like it. I think I do like it more than Cerberus. I've played the game way more since writing the script. I do really like Balrog a lot. I don't think it will ever surpass Cavalier as far as secondary weapons go, but it is really fucking good, especially once you get the hang of it. The guns are fine. I just really don't like using the guns that much. Same goes for basically all of the games. Of course you get Ebony and Ivory, and Dante's trusted shotgun, but the fan favorite Kalina Ann is back, plus its upgraded counterpart, Kalina Ann 2. And of course you can combine the two into a giant laser gun, which I used maybe once. Dr. Faust was an interesting idea, taking the new emphasis on red orbs and turning it into a gameplay mechanic. You spend the red orbs that you use for currency and gamble them away to attack enemies. But if you miss or fuck it up, the orbs are gone forever. I tried to get into it, but it still goes against my whole not being into the guns shtick. I'll have to experiment with it more, especially if I want to buy the 9 million orbs worth of moves, which is just the main unlockable taunts. Dante's Double Trigger is about the same as it was in 4, and by extension 3, being a basic upgrade to Dante's base damage and regenerating health. Some moves, like Stinger, deal multiple hits of damage when in DT, each with a very satisfying hit stop on the frame rate, accentuating the damage he's doing. With the Devil Sword Sparta equipped, the Spectral Swords appear automatically. The new mechanic for Dante is the Sin Devil Trigger, which turns Dante into a hulking behemoth that deals obscene amounts of damage for a very limited amount of time. Unlike a traditional Devil Trigger, it doesn't regenerate health when activated, and it can't be turned off manually, so it's all or nothing when you use it. To fill up the Sin Devil Trigger gauge, you need to sacrifice energy from your normal Devil Trigger gauge, meaning if you do that, you can't use the normal DT until you fill it up again. The Sin Devil Trigger shares similar design elements to the Majin Devil Trigger in the second game, but it's activated differently. As I said, to fill up the Sin DT gauge, Dante channels his normal DT into it, but the Majin form was activated by using Devil Trigger on stupidly low health. I never used it in Devil May Cry 2, so that's why I never brought it up until now. Also, Majin form was supposed to be Dante's pure devil form, but now it's the Sin form, it's also an unused concept from Devil May Cry 4. There's not much else to talk about with Dante, but I do want to talk about something great that I discussed during the 4 review. In 4, Dante was forced to have every weapon equipped at the same time, which was more acceptable there considering there were only 6, 3 devil arms and 3 guns, whereas here, Dante has a total of 7 devil arms and 6 guns. That would not have been okay here. Having to cycle through every single weapon to do what combos you wanted, it's not okay. You can pick and choose exactly which weapons you would like to have equipped, to a point. The game requires you to have one of the main swords equipped, and the pistols. But after those, you're able to equip anything else, or nothing if you wanted to. Once beating Son of Sparta mode, you can buy the ability to equip every single weapon at the same time, or removing the swords altogether, which is absolutely nuts. I only used all of the weapons in the Void, the game's training grounds, but it's a trip. The game itself does veer towards the easy side, which I expected. When I started the game, I got 100,000 red orbs from buying the deluxe edition, then another 50,000 orbs from having a save file from the demo on my system. I wanted to start as fresh as possible, and unfortunately they got rid of the ability to buy vital stars, so I had to buy about 130 megabusters to use up all the red orbs, seeing as I knew I wouldn't use them much. Gold orbs, which will resurrect you at full health in Devil Trigger, are found literally everywhere. I had maybe 15 of them by the time I actually started using them, and there is the ability to buy more. This, on top of more forgiving timings and mechanics, like Dante's Sin Devil Trigger, which is basically the win button, is very well suited for newcomers to the series. Unfortunately, due to the metric fuckton of fan service this game has, it will also alienate newcomers by having so much shit they'll just miss. Also, microtransactions. Yes, this game has microtransactions, but I didn't find them at all intrusive. They did modify the game a little bit to accommodate them, like getting rid of the ability to use vital stars for health, so you have no choice but to die if you suck, but with how abundant the gold orbs are, it wasn't really necessary. Or, you can just fucking get good. It's the Dark Souls of Devil May Cry games. Presentation-wise, this game looks absolutely incredible. The RE engine lends a very visceral feel to the game with a very realistic art style. While I really enjoyed how Devil May Cry 4 looked, and would have been interested to see the game done in that art style, they did a really good job with everything here. Dante looks noticeably older during the time jumps, his hair getting longer and having more stumble after the month. Everyone looks very beaten up as the game progresses, and their expressions all look great as well. As I said, all the characters look great. Dante, while sometimes feeling a little off, looks really good and has a very confident but also charming demeanor. Nero, who looks a little bit like my buddy Nick, has a perfect air of snark around him. Nico, for the most part, looks great and made me smile when I saw her. V looks like Kylo Ren. Sure, that's the popular thing to say, but that's not a bad thing. Lady looks amazing. She's super cute and her design is great. Trish, while probably my least favorite overall design, did grow on me a little bit. I think it's just a shame that she looks so okay when Eva, who Trish is literally based off of, looks super pretty. I don't know. Usually I'm not so shallow with shit like this, but I guess when they look so realistic, it's hard to not notice. By the way, the EX costumes for Trish and Nico look terrible. For everyone else, they look just fine. I do want to say something about Trish, too. It seems like, I don't know if this is just the animation team or what, it seems like she does not want to be in this game. She seems so uninterested in everything. Maybe that's just her character, I don't know, but in 4 she seemed very, charming, but in this she's just kind of like, I'm here.
This is the lowest level of the Qliphod's upper echelon. Human blood is the source of demons' power. The fruit born through the Clivod is even more dense than the blood that created it. Its power is unparalleled. Even the almighty Mundus used it to become king of the underworld.
Also, with the costumes, there is a picture of Trish wearing like a motorcycle jacket, and she looks super cute in it, and I'm really upset that she did not get the option to wear that. I know that she's not playable or anything, but just having her wearing that in cutscenes would have been very nice. Oh, and Virgil looks great too. I don't know how much sense it makes for him to look so much older, seeing as he spent so much time, well, dead and corrupted, but it looks really good on him. His new design looks great too. I suppose I'll talk more about the art style change. I think they did a very good job translating everything over. The classic enemies that were brought back all look very good, and I've already touched on the character models. The weapons all look really awesome too, each with a tweaked design. Dante's Rebellion definitely has a more slim design in this game, and the ornaments on the hilt look really cool. If you look up close, you can see that it has a Damascus finish on the blade that looks really nice. Nero's Red Queen has a more brutal curve to it and forgoes the elegant rose thorn design that 4 had, into more of a steampunk rendition of the rocket sword. Last weapon, I swear, the last I want to talk about is the Yamato, which I am of two minds about. I think the design of the blade itself, along with the saya, or the sheath, have a bit of a primal look to them, or at least as primal as a katana can look, and it makes sense for a demon blade to look like that. The Tsuba, or guard, looks way too ornate, same with the handle wrappings. It looks more authentic than it did in 4, but also the scale design worked really well for it. Okay, that's it for looks and weapons. The voice acting cast and motion capture casts did really good jobs. Despite some iffy script translation, the cast pulls everything together off very well. Ruben Langdon, who has played Dante since 3, obviously does a really good job again. Johnny Young Bosch as Nero is always a treat to hear, performing a very heartfelt performance this time around. And as always, Daniel Southworth as Virgil. Damn, he's good. While I missed the nasally performance he had in 3, he still comes across as a snarky asshole that plays against Langdon's carefree Dante very well. I would comment on the other characters, most prominently the ladies, but they don't really get that much screen time admittedly, and that is a huge disappointment. I would have really liked to see more interaction between everyone. And there are some moments where characters just know things they shouldn't. Like with Dante using the rebellion on himself. It seemed like he just jumped to the conclusion that Virgil did the same thing, but we don't get V explaining to him like we did with Trish. There's also a lack of funny, cartoony Dante here. While there are a few moments where he shows through, it seems like this Dante is way more grounded than he has been in the past. Nero absolutely gets way more screen time overall, and while that's not bad, Dante should have gotten more time to show off. Something to point out too, there's a fair amount of swearing in this game, a stark contrast to the previous games, and almost all of it comes from Nero. It seems like Itsuno wanted to embrace the more vulgar attitude reboots Dante had, and in a bit more of a tasteful way. Instead of spewing out profanities like reboots Dante, Nero does swear quite sparingly, which I appreciated. I personally have no issue with swearing, I clearly do quite a fair bit of it myself, but I will admit I don't find excessive use of it cool. There are a lot of small details in this game, and it's amazing. As I've already mentioned, the Damascus on the Rebellion looks good. The way that the drained humans fade away into dust when the playable characters move through them looks really good. V's book, despite not being easy to see, is very high detailed. All this is accentuated with the addition of a photo mode in this game. While it's hard to get good images during combat, it is still nice to have, especially for people like me who love to capture moments and animations. One of my favorite details involves Nico, more specifically her driving skills. You can call Nico from almost everywhere as long as there's a payphone to call her with, and she will make her way there using her magic van. I'm not entirely sure how she does it, but I love it, especially considering every instance of her calling her is a unique cutscene. My personal favorite is one of the last ones with V, where Griffin takes his cane and starts playing around when Nico bursts through the wall and almost kills him.
Impressive.
I mentioned music a few times earlier, and I have to admit, the soundtrack in this game is really good. Most games I play, I usually have videos or something going on while I play, usually pausing during the cutscenes, but with this, I wanted the full experience, so I played with headphones on, and I was not disappointed. The main combat theme for Nero, being Devil Trigger, is of course a blast to listen to. Subhuman, which is actually the new version they made after the legal issues with the original singer came out, was really good too. I never had any real issues with the original version anyways, but the backlash it received was outstanding. V's battle theme was really good too. I think it's called Crimson Cloud, that's just offhand though. Implementing a dynamic music system that is tied directly into the style gauge was an excellent idea. The music getting louder and more intense the higher the rank you had. And that final boss theme, so good. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's such a good song. I love how it's almost somber at first, being slightly reminiscent of Gwen's theme from Dark Souls, but with violin instead of piano. Then kicking into full gear when Nero activates his Devil Trigger. I'm personally not a huge fan of the more techno type music, just not my cup of tea, but Silver Bullet is just damn good. Being almost a remix of Devil Trigger was a great idea, being the perfect payoff of listening to the song, on average, every day since it was revealed. Not every day per se, but enough times to equal every day. Legacy was a really good track too, but I found it was definitely best used during the final trailer that they had released for the game. So, that's basically everything I wanted to talk about. But the real question is, did it exceed all of my expectations? Well, yes and no. While it was an incredible game, there are a few things that held it back for me. Thankfully, they're all thematic and story related. I think Dante and Virgil's relationship came to a nice conclusion, but I don't think they got there in the right way. It felt very forced, like Nero forced them to kill the Qliphoth, but then they're just best friends anyways. I assume this was an attempt to close off the game in a timely manner, but maybe give them a bit more on-screen time to fix their broken relationship, at least a little bit. I've already expressed my issues with Nero suddenly being stupidly powerful, so I don't need to bring that up further. I had an idea on where the story might have gone, and this was not it. While I appreciate what they did, with V's demons being his own personal demons, and reconciling the brothers' relationship, I thought that they could have hit a much stronger chord. Maybe delving more into Dante's thoughts on his brother, and finally giving him up along with his ties to the past. But they decided to keep Virgil around for the sequels, which I can appreciate. I guess if they had done something drastic, like killing off Dante let's say, then they were in danger of alienating the fanbase. But for the last trailer invoking feelings of sadness with the music and tone, I was expecting it to hit me a bit more. The reading materials that the game provides were a nice addition, but I don't think there was enough of them. If they wanted to flesh out the story more, either add more cutscenes or more of the readings. Also, not having a way to inspect the Yamato is a crime. I really enjoyed the weapon viewers when I was younger, when my interest in weapons and swords was the strongest, but even now, I do still appreciate it. I also liked the influence the game took from the reboot, the most prominent being the environment changing around you. That, on top of the more realistic art style, was a nice send-off for the game. There's also some things too, like there's an enemy, I believe it's called the Berserk, that kind of just flashes around. It's like the Dream Runner in the reboot. There's just small shit like that that was a very nice addition, and like I said, it was a very nice send-off. So is this my new favorite Devil May Cry game? Well, I don't really know. At this point, I've played through the game twice, 3 times, read all of the material, watched all of the live action cutscenes, which are amazing by the way, and spent a lot of time watching material people have been making about the game. There are some things missing, like a Bloody Palace mode that will be introduced into an update in a month or so. Oh god, no! April 1st. It's coming in like... oh god, like 4 days. 5 days. I don't know. Jesus, I didn't even think about that. Also, the lack of being able to play as Virgil is a shame. I can't blame them, of course, seeing as we get 3 very fleshed out characters to play as. But not having the same gameplay restrictions that were in 4 just makes it disappointing. Supposedly, a data miner has found information for a playable Virgil in Bloody Palace mode, so I am pretty excited for that. They've also found information for a playable Lady and Trish apparently. I think, maybe, yeah, it's my favorite Devil May Cry game. That can change at any time, but with everything they've done with the gameplay, and the world and level design, it just barely surpasses 3 in my opinion. Now, would I say this game is good for newcomers? No. I made it very clear that there's too many instances of fan service and mechanics that newcomers would have a hard time with. While I don't think it would be impossible, I just think that it would make more sense to play the others first. -2. It has literally nothing to do with 2. There is a video you can watch before starting the game, which will give a quick rundown on the history of the series, including the anime, but it won't go all that in depth. So, what are my hopes for the series? Well, fan reception seems to have been excellent, so that will certainly get Capcom's attention. If they take their time to work on 6, like they should, I think in the meantime, doing a remake of 1 and maybe 3 would be a wise idea. Especially seeing as a lot of enemies can be reused, and it wouldn't take that long to do as a brand new game. 3 could easily use similar assets for the Clifot and change them a bit to become the Temenagru. I just want more Devil May Cry, and if they can redo the older games that haven't aged as well like 1, then I would be an absolutely happy camper. They could even alter some things to more closely align with the retcons and changes that they have made over the years. And maybe next time I can get that review copy. Right, Capcom? Phew. The script is 17 pages long. Actually, at this point, almost 19. That's the longest script I've made for a video like this so far, and it'll be interesting to see how long this video turns out. I would not be surprised if it ended up being an hour and a half long. Well, 17 pages of garbage since I played on PS4, where they censored Lady's butt in one scene with the lens flare, so this clearly is the worst version of the game. Anyways, next week should be Terrell's turn, so we'll see you all next time with something, hopefully, far shorter. Now it's just time to decide what I want to review next.
So it is written.